Hey, Year 10. Even though we're not doing online learning anymore, I thought these videos would still be quite useful in just having a look at the scene summary and scene analysis as we go along, just to kind of consolidate our knowledge and understanding from this week's learning. So, this week we've been looking at scenes 1 to 3, so let's have a look at the first summary of that then. It all started with the witches. The three witches gather in an outdoor location while a storm brews. They agree to meet again after a battle, also brewing, takes place. Following this battle, they will greet Macbeth. Once this meeting is arranged, they disappear from the scene, called away by Grey Malkin and Paddock, their familiars or spirits that assist them in doing evil. So let's look at some analysis of that. So although the witches appear in only 4 scenes in the whole play, they are catalysts for the action in the play, and they set up the dark mood that hangs over events that follow. So this is what we were talking about before, about the kind of foreshadowing of events later in the play that the witches kind of symbolise. So, while their motivations for choosing Macbeth as the focus of their activities and their instrument in destabilising the ruling order is never made clear, they seem to relish the prospect of the upcoming battle in chaos, calling it hurly-burly. So, this is relating to the battle in Act 1, Scene 2, so immediate foreshadowing coming along there. This old-fashioned British term, hurly-burly, might bring to mind any sort of chaotic scuffle. So in this context, it covers all of the duplicitous activities unfolding. So this means duplicit means kind of corrupt and mysterious events that are going to unfurl, as well as the actual warfare at hand. The witches summon thunderstorms with their meeting, which also reflects their ominous intentions and the play's mood. So that's our pathetic fallacy or sympathetic background coming through there. The mood of malevolence that hangs about the witches is enhanced when 2 of them reference their familiars by their pet names. Grey Malkin is a cat, likely a grey one, and Paddock is a toad. Here, Shakespeare alludes to the common belief that witches use animals as familiars or messengers between themselves and the devil. Their last chant, fair is foul and foul is fair, reflects a disregard for fairness or goodness and a preference for that which is foul or evil. So, a Shakespearean audience would basically be feeling very uncomfortable about these unnatural, events happening with these witches. So we've got relations to the devil. We've got relations to the fact that the witch's preference is foul or evil rather than good and perfection, that kind of thing. So we've got religious imagery coming through here, which is again a very important thing in this play, since a Shakespearean audience would have believed in God. Okay, so that's scene 1. Now let's go on to scene 2. So MacDonald, a lord from the Western Isles of Ireland and the Outer Hebrides, has joined with the Norwegian king to start a rebellion against King Duncan in Scotland. The captain, an unnamed wounded officer, reports to Duncan and Malcolm, the king's older son, about the state of the battle at the time he left it, saying that Macbeth fought his way through the melee until he could find MacDonald and kill him. Duncan is pleased by this news, but the captain also tells him that Norwegian reinforcements have arrived and that Macbeth and Banquo continue to fight. So at this point, the battle isn't quite over. We're nearly there. The Norwegian forces have nearly been killed off. However, the Thane of Cawdor at the time was beginning to rebel against Duncan as well. So Macbeth and Banquo went to go and fight him instead. At this point, the captain leaves to have his wounds attended to. The Scottish thanes, Ross and Angus, arrive to say that Norway attempted to take control of Fife, which is an area in Scotland, aided by the Thane of Cawdor. Macbeth pressed on, won the battle, and captured the Thane of Cawdor, who is a traitor. Duncan is pleased and plans to reward Macbeth by making him the new Thane of Cawdor. He tells Ross that the existing Thane will be executed because of his treason, because he was a traitor. Okay, let's analyse this then. So the battle that Macbeth fights here plays an important part in establishing his character before he meets with the witches and hears their prophecies later in scene 3. This isn't just any battle he's fighting, it's an attempt to overthrow the king. As a Thane, Macbeth has pledged his loyalty to the king, and he goes above and beyond in battle to satisfy that oath and defend the crown. He isn't simply doing his part in the battle either. He actively pursues and kills the lord who allied himself with Norway, so the previous Thane of Cawdor. Then, even after Norway has a toehold in Fife, Macbeth beats back those forces and pursues the other Thane who betrayed their king. Macbeth is clearly driven by the glory of the battlefield and is a fierce fighter who doesn't shy away from violence. But in this scene, his ambition serves his fierce loyalty to his king. Okay, so we've got this ferocity that Macbeth clearly has, and he's coming across very ambitious here. So at the moment, this is in loyalty to the king, but later in the play, we see this turned on its head. Okay, so while this portrait of Macbeth provides sharp contrast to the scheming traitor who emerges after he meets the witches, it also provides continuity by depicting Macbeth as a relentless opponent. In the play's final scene, Macduff will pursue Macbeth through battle in the same way Macbeth pursued MacDonald and the Thane of Cawdor. And I won't tell you any more because that's a spoiler alert. So, let's move on to scene 3 then, which you would have done with the cover teacher on Friday. So this is an important scene, okay? This is the scene where the witches make their prophecies and foreshadow again later events in the play. So, the witches meet as arranged on a heath, where they encounter Macbeth and Banquo as they make their way home from the battle against Norway. Banquo notices them first and wonders if they are really women. He thinks they have beards. The witches hail, which is another word for salute, Macbeth as Thane of Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, and King hereafter. Their greeting to Banquo is far less clear. Comparing him to Macbeth, they say he is both lesser and greater, less happy and happier. In addition, they declare that his descendants will be kings. Macbeth asks how they have come by this information and why they have stopped the men with these fanciful prophecies. Rather than answer, however, the witches vanish. After the witches disappear, Macbeth and Banquo make jokes about what they said and question their own sanity. Banquo and Macbeth then talk about the witches' predictions. Ross and Angus arrive to congratulate Macbeth on his victory over Norway and declare him the new Thane of Cawdor. Because the Thane of Cawdor is still alive, Macbeth protests, but Ross and Angus declare Cawdor a traitor who through treason has forfeited his title and probably his life. Banquo and Macbeth talk privately about how this first prediction has come true and wonder if the others will as well. Macbeth accepts his new title and thanks Ross and Angus. Interesting. So now let's analyse this. Okay, so scene 3 analysis. When they meet the witches for the first time, Macbeth and Banquo seem repulsed by them. They don't fit the two men's expectations of what women should look like, which makes the men suspicious. Furthermore, both men seem to dismiss the predictions they make. Macbeth protests that the Thane of Cawdor still lives, meaning Macbeth himself cannot become Thane of Cawdor. Furthermore, the prospect of Macbeth's becoming king seems completely ludicrous. Only after Ross and Angus deliver the message that Duncan has declared Macbeth the new Thane of Cawdor do Macbeth and Banquo begin to put stock in the witch's words. So that's another way of saying they are beginning to believe these prophecies or predictions, despite them originally thinking that they were ludicrous. Macbeth's ambition begins to take root, and perhaps it was this quality that drew the witches to him. They have declared Banquo will be greater and happier than Macbeth in the long run, which is true. Macbeth will die before his time, but he will die with honour and the respect of his peers, and leave a legacy behind, while Macbeth will die in disgrace with no heirs. Banquo lacks the ruthless ambition that will soon emerge in Macbeth, so he does not take action to try to make the prophecies come true. Thus, his destiny unfolds naturally. In contrast, once Macbeth accepts the prophecies as truth, he allows them to influence his every decision. His destiny unfolds as predicted, but with terrible consequences, which we'll find out later in the play. Okay, so that's this week pretty much summed up. If you've got any further questions, just comment below or send me a message on Microsoft Teams. Thanks for listening.